Namaste again. So we are online. Thank you very much for joining me here on this webinar, where in a discussion with Skillcraft, we felt that a webinar on this topic of changes that we all are anticipating post-COVID is one that is relevant for all of us to share our ideas so that we help each other and pool the information to plan our future. As I start, I would just want to mention to you that whatever I would be presenting is my personal opinion, of course, combined with inputs I've received from various sources. I've also had the opportunity to discuss with some subject experts, and those points have also been included here. I've also relied on some critical study I've done of some very senior people in the industry, from whom I have taken these points and presenting it to you. We definitely look forward to questions, but I request that all of you to post your questions only in the question box in the left-hand side of the screen. The idea is that I would speak for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we can take up the questions. As I start, I understand the participants are a mix of young employees, team leaders, and also from some management schools. So during this webinar, I will try to provide some points covering all sectors. And of course, if you need any specific support later on, all of you know how to get in touch with the organizers for a specific support. I've just organized this to give you in brief a summary of the present situation, a lot of positives that we can take out of this. We'll quickly look at the various sectors, the opportunities, the challenges across the various sectors, the reality of the present situation, and definitely a lot of changes that we will have to live with in the post-COVID situation. And of course, at the end, I'm always proud as an Indian that we are generally a set of people who are more prepared for change. So let's discuss these points. This is, of course, a very rare situation that we are in. Some are calling it historic because I'm sure each of us will live through this only once. It's definitely a rare situation, not anticipated by anybody, not imagined. So each of us is only as intelligent as he can get. So the idea is therefore to share our experiences, but I do see a lot of positives coming out of this situation. Some of us have this question as to why at all do we have a lockdown? I'm sure everyone appreciates now why we have a lockdown, because this is almost the only practical option available. And to speak very frankly, each one of us will contact this virus at some time. That's a fact. But most of us will not even know that we are contacting this virus, or a very small portion of people may have mild effects. Such being the case, the lockdown is only to prepare, the necessary infrastructure in the hospitals and so on to support even the small fraction of people who need the support. In fact, the doctors themselves needed some time to identify a methodology of, providing a cure. So if this lockdown had not happened, we would have had seriously huge number of people too soon crowding into the hospitals, and we are not ready for that. I'm sure the lockdown now for the last 36 days, we are more ready. Most state governments have put, infrastructure in place. But to expect life to get back to normal by early May or even mid-May is definitely not correct. There would be a partial lockdown at least. There would be a series of temporary stops in place. And most experts agree that this is what will happen to the end of the year. And in fact, a full reversal of lockdown will happen only when a vaccine is available. And again, here, people are talking of anything from 12 to 18 months away for a vaccine to be used. So we all have to be ready for a different lifestyle. A lifestyle with social distancing, lifestyle with masks, a lifestyle with a lot of uncertainties, and short term, we will have to live with all these things. And we need to be ready for this. For example, think of enforcing social distancing inside aircrafts, or more so, say, for example, our suburban trains and buses. It's almost impossible. So we will see changes, like, for example, now we've accepted metal detectors and X-rays when we enter either a mall or an airport. I'm sure in time to come, we will also see a tunnel where we enter for a disinfectant spray. And this is going to be a new normal. In fact, this webinar itself is it's a very new thing for me. Of course, we are used to video conferencing or one-to-one or one-to-two people. But this webinar where we are addressing a significant number of people is something new to me. So all of us need to learn from these things. But again, I appeal to all of you is a recommendation that all experts are giving in is don't fear. In fact, fear is the biggest killer or a bigger killer than the vaccine. We're sure to see a lot of support from the government in the days to come. Again, a lot of questions have been asked on what is the Indian government done to us? Why not some big announcement like some other countries? We've heard from the government sources that India prefers to take a series of medium-sized measures. For example, everybody is saying why we cannot get 1 month's salary, 2 months' salary completely credited by the government on behalf of the companies. It looks very fine, but again, I have to get back to this point. We are not going to get back to a normal in a very short time. So when you start looking at the long term, I believe the government is sensitive to this, and they're going to do a series of mid-sized measures, as they call it. We will also have structural reforms, either on taxation or promoting specific industries like manufacturing in definitely some time to come. Presently, of course, the government is focusing on managing the health situation, and we all need to cooperate on that front. It's a fact that many businesses are affected due to this lockdown. Companies have lost revenues for 1 quarter, but then, of course, they have to maintain their fixed expenses. So many companies are definitely cash strapped, cash negative, and possibly even contemplating some job losses to manage the situation. So the situation is, in fact, that we will see disruptions in business. We will possibly see some loss of jobs, but there are also many opportunities that are opening up And that's what we should start looking at in a positive way. So every difficult situation, therefore, provides us also something to learn, adapt, and win over challenges. And I'm a very optimistic person on that. Just look at the changes that have happened in the society in the last 40 days. The amount of appreciation that service providers, we are calling them as COVID warriors, including doctors, health workers, sanitation staff, is absolutely superb. Police, whom we always thought of negative and we still consider it as a negative mindset, there's huge appreciation for the amount of hard work that police is putting in place. And of course, appreciation for what the government itself is doing to help not only Indians, but every country abroad. India has got a lot of goodwill in the recent past, and this goodwill is going to help us in the times to come. Of course, there's been a huge respect for personal hygiene, good food, time with the families, and of course, the great Indian spiritual attitude. So, along with being a little practical about how to handle the situation, we have also had a good respect for preventive medication, which is inbuilt in our system. Most of us have grown up with a lot of homemade remedies, and these homemade remedies is what people are looking for as a positive alternative today. So crisis by itself for sure will go. Life will be better later, and new opportunities will open for companies. And let's look at the various sectors and then see where we start. Across sectors, experts are convinced that a lot of business will move into India from China, and in a big way. So this is a huge opportunity and we need to be ready for this. Be confident of your talent. Talent is what will survive and will help you survive. A lot of people I know are fearing about their jobs. But one very possible and good way is to look at this time to be an entrepreneur. You can provide service to your own company, part-time may it be. So let's look at the various sectors and how we are positioned. But I keep reminding you of the great teachings of our master always. Have faith in yourself. You don't know your own immense strength. Please sit and reflect on this. Practically, of course, people are mentioning that the business losses already is to the extent of about $9 trillion. This is big money. The Indian GDP is supposed to have taken a hit of about 12% already in the last 2 months. New projects are frozen. And of course, some fresh recruitments are definitely frozen. This being the general situation, let's look at the various industries. The first, the IT industry. The IT industry is a very resilient industry. All of you will be happy to know that just in about a few days of the lockdown, major companies, be it Infosys, TCS, etc., were back to operating at about 85-90% of their capability by distributing work to be done from home. There are definitely huge opportunities in this industry. Hardware, a huge spike is expected in the hardware industry. Digitization, animation for education, For example, in the last few weeks, most of our children, of course, in the urban area have moved to getting educated by online classes. But this needs to be expanded into smaller towns and our rural sector also. This provides an extremely huge industry for growth. Gaming industry will grow in parallel. In the IT industry, there was already a talk of a lot of jobs in programming was going out, and definitely that is gone. People say about 200 million jobs will go. But new additions of job will be about 150 to 160 million anticipated across all these sectors I mentioned, and also in artificial intelligence, data analytics, process automation, robotics, especially robotics for healthcare. I'm sure we're going to walk in future hospitals will be received by robots only. All the preliminary tests, for example, already people are working on robots for COVID tests so that we don't have to have human-to-human contact. So all these industry put together, or all these sectors within IT industry will generate about 160 million jobs. Data security and cyber security, as we start working from distance offices and from home, is a big requirement. So there is jobs. People who lose jobs will have opportunities, but it needs you to reskill yourself. This is a time for you to learn, re-equip yourself, and be ready. Even otherwise, this industry is an industry which has a lot of cyclic, ups and downs. They say a cycle is typically 5 years. Disruptions happen in the industry due to development. This famous WhatsApp moment is what everybody in the industry should be ready for. So the IT industry per se, therefore, will go through a change, but it will come out on top with more opportunities than what we lose. E-commerce is the next sector I'd like to discuss. Again, here's a sector which will thrive. This will be the least affected by COVID. For sure, people are not going to go to malls for some time, crowded stores. And what is happening here in the e-commerce industry would be almost similar to what happened to digital payments after demonetization. There will be a big growth in e-commerce, and it is a very habit-forming, way of working. So once people get latched onto e-commerce, it's very tough to go back to brick and mortar shops. However, some of the sectors here, for example, which is dependent on imports from China, for example, mobiles, toys, and other digital equipment, will have a small negative sentiment sometime. Will this push manufacturing to India? It's a big question. Very difficult because it's difficult to match the low cost that we have been used to for these imports from China, for example. But again, we are a hugely aspirational market. Come 2021, and I'm sure we'll all get back to our old habits. At least the fear of the local Kirana stores going away or shut is gone. E-commerce will work very closely with the Kirana stores for a sort of a last mile delivery or a local delivery. Of course, the big news about Jio and Facebook getting on, and a big launch of Jio Mart is expected to be a very defining moment in India's e-commerce, and potentially it can take off like never before. Jio will also have the advantage of being tagged as an Indian entity, either for final end users or, of course, as a company to meet legislative guidelines or for FDI constraints. It will be a local company. So we can expect a very big boost from JioMart. So WhatsApp reach plus Jio connectivity is a huge weapon for growth. And India and Indians, we being very price sensitive people, I'm sure we'll switch from established e-commerce platforms that we're used to possibly other low-cost options. So on the whole, e-commerce will survive and do very well. Manufacturing is one segment which will have a big hit in the short term. As you know, almost all the manufacturing industries, whether it's steel, cement, fabrication, is stopped. The automobile industry has been shut down. And revival of the automobile industry, especially the cars, which is capital intensive, in the next 1 year looks very difficult. Obviously, this industry doesn't stand on its own. There are a lot of auxiliaries to this, and they will all have to go through a little challenging time. But with this social distancing and fear of using a public transport, there could be a big spurt in two-wheeler buyings, which is again a silver lining that we can see. The government is also very vigilant about this. It does understand the cash flow problems of many companies. And I understand that there's a lot of support being planned to be launched by the government in the days to come. Related to manufacturing, the mining, electrical or electricity revenues have been hit. So this is one industry which is definitely going to have some challenge for some time. Of course, there is also again a silver lining here. Again, the issue is about move of manufacturing companies from China to India is a certainty. Even the Prime Minister has spoken about this. And so also some of the chief ministers have spoken about this. And I'm sure in a short time, there's going to be a lot of legislative support, whether it is labor laws, whether it is steps required to do business easily in the country will come. And I'm optimistic that this government move in a big way will ensure that foreign companies are comfortable to operate in India. But as young employees, you need to skill yourself to work in an MNC culture. We have a lot of experience in this, and we're ready to support and handhold any company which needs this support. Because whenever an MNC comes in, they look for trust, they look for improved quality of delivery, and of course, improved communication. So these are a few highlights with which you need to reorient yourself. And then, of course, as I told you, we're around to support you if you need. So manufacturing industry will have a little difficulty, but wait for a boom also to come in. Be ready. Service sector, which is a very big contributor to our GDP, is going to be affected in many ways. Of course, for some foreseeable time, people are not going to walk into malls. As I told you, aviation industry is going to suffer. social distancing with one person per row is being in an aircraft is being talked about, which would mean straight away 3 times the cost per ticket. Of course, there is the fear of travel, but the cost of travel also will be very high. Tourism would be significantly affected, with international travel going to be put off. Tourism industry for the next 2 years is definitely going to suffer. And so also hospitality, five-star hotels and so on. Cinema, where people again would fear, even if they're open with every fourth seat being offered for a viewer, I don't think people would go in and crowd into the cinemas. So these are industries which need to sustain this period with possibly different thinking. Oil and gas will also be significantly affected. Events and conferences will be postponed. The film industry will go through a turmoil. And live sports, as we know, is not going to happen. I don't think there's going to be too much charm in watching, telecasts also in empty stadiums. But some other sectors, like of course real estate, office spaces will shrink. Already, some of these IT companies are saying that they're going to have this model of distributed working up to almost 75-80% as their model going forward. Construction works will suffer as migrant workers will take a lot of time to come back. In fact, the moment the lockdown is open, whoever migrant worker is there in the cities will always like to go back to his town to be with the family and feel a little safe. So to that extent, construction industry will have a difficult period. General pharma will suffer, but some of them who are making special medications will definitely do well. There are some segments I feel would take off also in a decent way, and you need to be ready to be ahead of the curve to get in here. Agriculture, I'm sure, is not going to be affected by COVID. Luckily, the prediction is also for a very good monsoon this year. So I also see sort of a reverse migration of some generation of people who were originally from this industry, who picked up engineering and moved to the urban cities, could migrate back, and we could have a set of educated farmers. This could be a sort of a silent boom to the industry. I'm sure they would understand issues of contract farming and so on better. And this could be therefore a bonus to this industry. Insurance, stock market will also grow as there's a lot of fear and speculation that's going to happen in the market. India is well set up to provide a lot of alternate medication, whether it is Ayurveda or Siddha. And then already people are talking about the positives of our preventive medication being offered to the world at large. And therefore, there's a huge possibility for growth in this alternate medication. Network marketing will grow with people staying at home. There are already many established players who will grow. And these, like agriculture, alternate medicine is something that if people who are in the industry like tourism and so on don't have this secondary capabilities which can be developed, I think that's the way to overcome the situation. Of course, spiritual consciousness will be a big revival as people are already starting to contemplate on various issues, including the purpose of life. And there is a huge interest, therefore, in our eternal ancient wisdom. So there could be, again, a lot of growth in spiritual field, of which India is very, very well poised to provide the world. So in all, we covered quickly the various sectors and then the challenges, but come what may, there are going to be changes in the way we work. Workplace will no more be the same. You can expect a mix of fear, insecurity, high distrust, along with, of course, social distancing. Already there is a lot of directives on how and we have to operate in a companies by operating only a partial set of people, or distancing people during lunchtime and so on and so forth. So these are some things that we'll have to live with in some time to come. Travel definitely restricted. Travel for sales, travel for marketing. No more travel for just as a dinner meet with a client or a chai pe charcha with anybody. So it would be only video calls that we will have with clients for some time. International travel is also again going to be difficult because each country will try to protect itself. Some immigration rules could become very strict, and therefore we can sort of expect a reverse drain of people, or reverse immigration of people to India. So this is a reality, and to cope up to this, I have to reiterate again, you need to keep learning and re-equip yourself. Even in your present employment, I know it's going to happen. People need to put up their hands to take additional jobs. You need to do this also because this will give you an opportunity to learn. It's also possible that we will move to a sort of a Western way, I would say, of part-time employment, contract employment, or employment for a particular task or a project. Office will shrink with just a few project managers to manage these people working from different places. So our strength and our resilience will come to test, and I'm sure we as Indians will do very, very well in this. The world, of course, thinks of us for doing jugaad. Jugaad is an attitude. It's also our strength sometimes because we can change very, very fast to circumstances. Working from home will be an absolute reality, or hybrid working. You go to office for a week and then stay home for 3 weeks. So this has both advantages and disadvantages, of course. And I'm sure already in the last few weeks, most of us have learned how to work from home. This is also a challenge sometimes because people tend to overwork. So please be careful and take care of yourself. Take care. I know in an Indian situation with possibly some small homes or with larger families, there are disturbances and you may not find a quiet corner to have a professional setup. But within the limitations, try to do your best and keep your employer informed of your situation. Invest in good infrastructure, whether it is a nice broadband connectivity or necessary laptops and speakers and so on, so that you're comfortable from work. You need this for the next few years, and possibly that will be the way we work in future. Of course, work from home can also be a boon for some women who had given up their career for the sake of the family. So welcome all the women. Welcome back. If you're a team leader, I have a small appeal for all of you. Of course, this is a time of big responsibility. Please keep the team spirit high. Engage with your people in a positive way. I know it's difficult, but we need to be sensitive to employees, especially if you're cutting jobs. We need to be open and discuss the situation of the company. I don't know, maybe we could even negotiate to see if everybody can take a salary cut instead of job cuts. But it's a time for team leaders to also put up their hands and be more open with the company situation. And I don't want to say that, but I have to appeal to all of you to not exploit the situation also. Do work closely with your subcontractors, sub-vendors as an extended team. And this is a time to show your leadership skills. So these are, I would say, some, I know it is a bullet point because we have covered a very wide set of issues here. We have talked about various sectors, I know in very brief. But again, I'm very optimistic of what's going to happen in future. Even I read from various doctors that Indians are genetically stronger to take on these viruses. And possibly that's what explains the low incident of effect in India. It's not a meaning that we need to take this slightly, but we need to take strength from this. Fear not. Fear is more dangerous than the virus per se. We as a group of Indians are spiritually very strong, so let's respect each other. And this spiritual strength is one that will carry us through the tough times. So again, to summarize, we do not see a near normal return to work activity until a vaccine is found 12 months away or 18 months away. Social distancing is a must, and that's the only way it will happen. So work with strength, work towards improving your immunity. The World Bank has said 2021-22 would be a great year of rebound. Let's keep our optimism going. Skill yourself and be ready for a change. Good luck, everybody. Jai Hind. Let's support each other. I'm going to take up some questions here. There's a question. I will not name anybody, so use only the question. It says, until a vaccination is invented for COVID, is it safe for people to go out for working with the prescribed PPEs and COVID guidelines? I think we have covered this enough. Again, my appeal to all of you is don't panic. Please do your research. But it's a fact that this is something that we still don't understand. So please take all precautions as much as possible and follow the guidelines which ICMR and others are giving regularly. Next question is about what is the role you envisage for artificial intelligence? Huge, as I already covered. Artificial intelligence and data science. For example, right now, people are doing a lot of number crunching to understand how and when we can control the spread of this virus. So definitely, this is an era for artificial intelligence. Process automation, for example, manufacturing will restart, but along with that, to reduce possibly the number of workforce, to put machines to work overnight, there's going to be a lot of process, computing that we will need. So all these areas of artificial intelligence, automation, data science, process management, and control will see a huge, uh, you know, growth. Next question is about, due to robotics implementation in all industry, what will we have to do for survival in the HR field? Yes, HR field will see a downtrend, sorry, because of these same reasons of automation, and even companies may not have HR, an extended HR department, but outsources. So here is where I told you about your entrepreneurial skill. Please develop an entrepreneurial skill. You become an entrepreneur providing HR support services to multiple companies, and I would say that would be the way to go. Same with robotics. It says if robotics is introduced in healthcare and other fields, won't there be a loss of job? Surprisingly, a lot of people saying robotics is not going to take away your jobs, but in fact, it would create more opportunities for jobs, but possibly with a different skill. So that's where, again, I come back to the point of reskilling yourself in what is the best way forward. What will be the most important freelance skill post COVID-19 to be relevant with corporates? I'm sorry, this is it's a very personal thing, so you need to evaluate what is your strength. But in my experience, I will tell you again, you will survive provided you have a few attributes. I always look at the strength of fundamentals in a person. Sometimes what happens is that you're employed in a particular industry for many years and you tend to forget your basic skills. So you need to be in touch with your fundamentals. If your fundamentals are strong in whatever field, it doesn't mean, you can always shift to a related field or even an absolutely new field, provided your ability to learn is intact. So importance is about your fundamentals. Keep a good communication skill. That's very, very important. Please don't misunderstand communication as a language skill. I'm talking of communication, of being, for example, frank and straight in your communication. So I would say to develop your freelance skill is a requirement, and you can do this provided your fundamentals are strong, your communication is good, your exposure to related industry and other industry would definitely help. If you have traveled a bit, that's an enormous experience that you can carry with you. If you have been a big reader of history, that would help. So this has nothing to do with the specific job, but it does with the fundamentals of being employable in related industry. Continuing, he says, please also elaborate on the mindset of corporates shying away from Chinese companies. This, I think, is something people are now openly talking about, right from America, Europe, and also in India. So this mindset is not only at the corporate level, but in some foreseeable future, you will see this in a personal attribute of people also. And after all, corporate decisions are a sum of personal attributes. So if you are working with a Chinese company, and being very open here, as written here, we could see some backlash in the workspace. Again, it's a question of personal safety equipment at work. It's not that everybody needs a full suit to work in all environments. What people are today recommending is a combination of social distancing. Wearing a mask will become an absolute importance. So it's a different one. Previously, when you were to go to an ATM, you had to remove the helmet, but today you need to wear a mask and then go all over the place. And hand sanitation all over the place, plus workplace sanitation. I think this is the combination that's being recommended today. What kind of strategic planning to be kept forward for a food processing industry? What will be the customer's behavior with respect to purchasing power after lockdown is removed? I think food processing industry will do very, very well, especially with people keeping away from restaurants in the foreseeable future. Processed food will see an upswing. Customer behavior with respect to purchasing power, I'm sure they're going to be prudent in spending, but I'm sure processed food or packaged food is now part of our regular purchases today, and it should not be really effective. Unless it is a fancy food, I don't think we have too much fancy food in the country. Now that many companies are in the process of moving to India, what are the priority areas like ensuring quality, etc., to be focused by the exporters so that the export market is captured? This is exactly the point I spoke about. This is an area where we have a lot of experience, having worked in an MNC atmosphere. To speak a little frankly, the problem is with we Indians, we are too smart. So sometimes these foreign companies in India ask us to follow procedures, but we tend to go one step forward and then try to create our own, you can call it smarter procedures. You may think you have ended up doing a better job, but in working with foreign companies, we focus that quality is very, very important. SOPs are very important, so follow the procedures. You're allowed to change procedure, but follow a change procedure and only then implement it. So this is one area where if you need, we can help you specifically here. So this is more an attitude change, plus a combination of skill sets that you have to develop. Your communication has to be very clear. Again, we Indians have a habit of not saying no to anything. It's an advantage at sometimes, but it's a huge disadvantage at many times. So you need to ensure that you improve quality and, of course, related documentations. So if you're there, I'm sure you'll be very successful in an MNC atmosphere. How companies can cut costs without much job loss, but ensuring quality of the product. I think it's a combination of various points we discussed. We need people to put up their hands to do more work. It's for the team to put up again their hands to see if you can support your colleagues and take a cut in salary instead of a few of your colleagues losing jobs. So it's by ensuring that you all work together to improve productivity is the only way that you can make your company and the products of your company globally competitive. What measures could have been taken to give salaries to the employees and construction workers? I think many companies have been cooperative and provided most of their employees with salaries. We have, of course, heard of difficulties for the construction workers. We all do empathize that what the government has done so far may not be adequate. We are really waiting for some more things to be done. But again, it's a corporate call. We need to be empathizing with these people, and I know many companies are providing facilities beyond their contractual requirement to migrant and construction workers. So I'm sorry, I can only give you a sort of a generic answer here. Next question is about give us an example of the possible large opportunity that India will have post-COVID days. I think I've covered about this for employees with specific talents. Beyond what is corporate looking for is what I think I can read from this question is what you can offer in other fields like alternate medicine or the requirement of the spiritual growth of the society. These are possible places where yoga for one is going to pick up in a very big way. People understand yoga would be a good way of building our immunity. So these are things that people can really look as an opportunity. So if you're in the travel industry, tourism industry, where you have a basic talent in all these things, it's time to put that in action. We're coming to the last few minutes of this, and then I'm going to take only a few more questions. Please suggest for retaining migrant laborers and developing local workforce. I think I just covered this. And again, maybe I can appeal to some team leaders and CEOs here that let's stretch ourselves and do what we can do best to these people. After all, they left their homes and come here to support us and in all our endeavors, and we need to take care of them. Well, what sort of role of counselors in and after COVID-19? Very good question indeed. I missed this point. I'm sure the government itself has asked for volunteers. They have opened helplines. It's not easy for everybody to sit at home, possibly with empty pockets or not knowing where to reach out. So we do hear of difficulties people are facing. In fact, counseling, not just for people who are sitting at home, but even COVID patients, somehow there is a stigma attached with this. And we hear of one or two suicides already in the various cities. So for sure, please, put yourself up as a volunteer with various organizations. The government itself has asked for volunteers across various sectors, and counseling is definitely one of them. My best wishes to you. Under the given situation of online education, what opinion or means by which imparting value education can be achieved, especially for primary students? Well, I think I can look at this to be provided at home. There's a lot of time that children are spending with parents and possibly grandparents. So you have nothing to complain now of lack of time. Previously, you had people going from one tuition center to school to another tuition center and so on, possibly. So now you are just move across to the next room and then take care of your kid. What will be the customer's behavior with respect to purchasing power? I think as far as purchasing power, yes, we covered. We can anticipate um, some luxury items and high cost items to be put off for some time. But if you are an Indian supplier, I think you will have a little bit of emotional appeal to do for sales. Okay, I think we're coming down to, I would say, the last question so that we can wind up. What project leaders have to take differently or additionally post-corona so that it makes it more meaningful to support business? I think I've covered this enough across and reiterate that it's a challenging time. Please apply your experience and put it together for your business to survive and grow. Last question, what is the status of the power sector? I think I've covered this with the manufacturing falling. The related industry of power and mining has been severely affected. Our consumption has come down. The discoms are short of cash. Luckily, so we can say that because most discoms are government controlled, I see a discussion paper going around supporting the various discoms, and a plan is in place. Maybe it's time to push fast the changes in the Electricity Act, which has been hanging for quite some time. But yes, the power sector is heavily strained. Private producers who didn't have a proper PPA are definitely cut down. Captive consumers and captive generators have cut down power generation. So it's definitely a very difficult period for power producers at this time. So, dear friends, thank you very much for joining me. I hope it's been a good session and I've provided not all but some inputs across various sectors. Again, we are available to handhold you for any support that we can do. You know how to reach us through the organizers. My very, very, very best wishes to each one of you. Good luck and Jai Hind.